Okay, we are ready to go. There is still some echo. And then we start recording for those who will watch us later on. If you can please mute yourself. Thank you. Okay, maybe Yuki, we start recording in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and greetings from New York. Thanks for being with us this morning for this side event to the 53rd session of the UN Statistical Commission. I'm Francesca Groom. I'm the Assistant Director of the United Nations Statistics Division, working on demographic and social statistics. It's a great pleasure to be with you today when we will discuss how to advance methods to close important gender data gaps, including on unpaid work and femicides. The session is organized in 3 parts. In the first one, we will talk about the 3 reports that have been finalized by the UN expert group on innovative and effective ways to collect time use statistics. We have the 3 lead authors with us. They will introduce the minimum harmonized instrument for the production of time use statistics. That's Patricia. We'll talk also about the digitalization and modernization of time use data collections with Will. And then Lisa will present the 3rd report where we cover quality considerations for time use surveys. These reports will also be discussed at the 53rd session of the Statistical Commission in a week or so. And they will also be at the core of the revision of the UN guidelines for producing statistics on time use. These are guidelines that were prepared in 2005, so they absolutely need to be updated. Of course, this is an opportunity for all of you to ask questions to the lead authors or to provide comments on the chat. Please feel free. That's the place where you can really also share your own experience. If you have questions, I'll pick them up and share them with the speakers of the first part. The second part of the session will focus on a statistical framework for measuring the gender-related killings of women and girls. We also talk about femicides or feminicides, and we'll have Enrico Bisogno from UNODC who will introduce the topic. And again, that's an opportunity for all of you to provide feedback or ask questions. And then part 3, I'm very happy to introduce my colleagues, Lingyan and Louise. They will give us a short overview, or it's more of a demo, on the latest portal, the latest development for the data portal for the UN minimum set of gender indicators. So that's more for information, but by all means, we would also be very happy to hear from you if you have any feedback for us on how we can improve the data portal for the gender statistics and the minimum set of gender indicators. So having said that, I think, and without further ado, I'm happy to give the floor to our first speaker, if you can. So Patricia Hall from Statistics Canada. Patricia is the chair of the UN expert group working on improving, coming up with innovative and effective ways to collect time use data. And Patricia is the time use survey manager at Statistics Canada. Patricia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Francesca. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to present the expert group work. As mentioned by Francesca, my name is Patricia Hull. I am the survey manager of time use survey at StatScan and the chair of the expert group on innovative and effective ways to collect time use statistics. Next, please. This presentation will describe what is the minimum harmonized instrument, the selected activity list, tool options, what digitalization means in this context, and the quality consideration for the minimum harmonized instrument. Next, please. The survey has always been the time use survey, has always been a challenge. And many countries still have a lot of manual process, so left behind by diaries, personal visits, or in recoding of verbatim answers. So one of the objectives of the minimum harmonized instrument was to present a lighter option of the gold standard full-time use survey for producing internationally comparable data with which will meet the Sustainable Goal Development Indicator 541 reporting requirements on unpaid household and care work. The expert group designed options that can facilitate more frequent collection or be used as a starting point for countries not currently collecting such data. The aim was to reduce response burden and processing time where verbatim answers will no longer be collected. The minimum harmonized instrument consists of essential background characteristics at the individual level, such as age, sex, relationship to household members, marital status, level of education attainment, current school attendance and grade, labor force status, and labor force status of spouse or partner. And at the household level, household size, and composition, place of residence, and household income. Those characteristics are generally included in national household surveys and form the basis to properly analyze the time use data. Other background characteristics identified as a priority from a country should also be included. To facilitate the collection, a list of 25 predefined categories have been selected, including another specified category for activities outside of the predefined ones or harder to classify or unknown. The list of activities can be used in a diary format or in a stylized questionnaire format. Both options will be discussed later. To ensure international comparability, concordance tables have been prepared by our Eurostat colleagues between the two major time use statistics classification, namely the Harmonized European Time Use Surveys, the HETIS, and the International Classification of Activities for Time Use Statistics, ICATIS. Next, please. The minimum activity list was created having in mind being able to report all activities that can be done during a full 24-hour period. As highlighted, a particular attention was given to activities related to the SDG 541 indicator. And another option was also provided to encompass other non-listed activities, unknown or not remembered activities. The activities were taken from the two-digit division level of ICATIS, which is not really adapted for self-completion terminology. Next, please. The 25 activities were converted in common language to be used in an instrument, facilitating the comprehension, but countries can choose other terms which can be better adapted to their practices. As an example, cleaning own or family dwelling was converted into cleaning the inside or outside of a dwelling, disposal of garbage or recycling, or watering plants. Next, please. The light diary instrument will fit both self-completion or caddy-caddy settings. In the case of self-completion, the respondent will use the drop-down list to select the activity, whereas in the CAPI or caddy context, the interviewer will translate the verbatim answer into predefined activities. The contextual information remains an important aspect of the survey, to better understand spatial mobility, the purpose, social contacts, and impact technology has on life. The digital light diary enables for the collection of a secondary or simultaneous activity. The predefined list of possible secondary activities is a subset of the full list and is focusing on routine domestic and care work that are often done while doing something else and frequently being omitted. The selection of simultaneous activities can be expanded to answer countries' needs. It should be collected for each episode and be assigned the same duration. It will improve the reporting of certain activities, but may not guarantee full measurement. Probing questions on specific type of activities such as childcare may be required. Built-in quality checks can also be added to the digital instrument to ensure coherence. For example, travel edits can be triggered in if two consecutive episodes are done in different locations, but no travel episodes was recorded in between. Another one would be to ensure eating time is reported, whether as a primary activity or a simultaneous or secondary activity. The stylized questionnaire tool can be used for personal interviews or telephone interviews, but the vast majority of countries using the stylized questionnaire will do so via personal interviews. Country or regions using stylized questionnaire may do so as it is easier than a diary to combine as a module to other surveys. May have population with lower literacy level or a lower statistical culture or a weaker sense of clock time. The collection can be more flexible as it might not collect information for a specific date. Stylized questionnaire will allow to have information on all the 25 recommended activities. It combines all time spent on a specific activity during a day or a week. Therefore, the contextual information and simultaneous activity that are collected in the diary cannot be collected in the stylized format. Probing questions will be used to help the respondents and also to minimize calculation errors. The use of the modern collection tool allows the summation of the hours to ensure it doesn't go over or under the maximum number of hours. Next, please. This is a very quick representation of what a diary would look like. The light diary instrument keeps all of what is usually in paper elements, so the what, for how long, where, who was with you. Countries should use predefined answer categories that fit their context and needs. Next, please. For whom was the activity done is based on the selected activity and targets unpaid household and care work and helping or volunteering. And the answer categories are also tailored to the proper activity. This is to clarify the purpose of the activity. If someone is baking a cake for school, it is then volunteering, not unpaid household work. Nevertheless, the adjustment will only happen at processing, where condition can be set to automatically recode the episode under the proper activity. Using information and communication technology can be asked for certain activities as highlighted here, but could also be asked for all the activities. Simultaneous or secondary activity question is to be asked with each episode using an abridged list of the main activity. The proposed example focus on the unpaid household and care work, but countries can add other activities of interest, such as eating, drinking, socializing, watching TV, listening to radio, etc. Next slide, please. The sequence used for the stylized questionnaire is to facilitate recall. Each of the 25 activities are tailored to the specific sections. The reference period is the choice of the country, whether a day or a week, but only one should be used. By asking the respondent how much time was spent on each of the 25 activities, it can help triggering the memory and facilitate recall. The week reference period allows to have information on some unpaid activities that are done less frequently and therefore having a more comprehensive picture of what a person does. To ensure the proposed stylized questionnaire will provide estimates comparable with those resulting from the use of a diary approach. Two groups of activities related to care work and production of goods for own final use use additional explanation or questions. Respondents are also asked to report the travel and waiting time associated with the activity at the same time. Only for employment and education that this will be collected separately. Next, please. Based on lessons learned in the Latin American and Caribbean region that has extensively used stylized questions to capture information on time use, the proposed stylized questionnaire includes suggestions of wording for questions to capture the activities agreed upon in the minimum list and in an ordering of the question that has proved to be more appropriate to facilitate recall. The questionnaire example can be found in the minimum harmonized report annexes. However, countries should adapt the questionnaire to their cultural and linguistic context, and cognitive texts are recommended. A country can choose which reference period to use, but in the case of a week, it is suggested to further split the week in weekdays and weekends. This helps reducing the calculation burden. Next slide, please. The digitalization, which will be discussed in more general terms by Will in the next presentation, brings huge benefits to time use surveys. On top of the more generic ones on reducing cost, processing time, and burden, it also improves data quality with integrated checks and edits, as well as reducing on-site collection burden as it requires a tablet to record the data instead of paper questionnaires. And the hope is also to increase response rate. Next, please. Even if this is a lighter version, the quality requirements are substantive and follows the regular time use quality requirements, but provides the minimum to be compliant with SDG 541. Quality consideration will be discussed in more depth by Lisa, but the same approach of having 24-hour minimum, making sure you have a limited number or maximum number of activities, etc., is really important. Next slide, please. So the next steps are to pilot the instruments. The expert group is committed in assisting countries who are interested in to use one of the tools and adapting it to their country's context. And as mentioned previously, we also have to update the UN guidelines using the report as a base. So please feel free to use the chat if you have any questions, and thank you for your interest.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Just before we jump into Will's presentation and we start talking about modernization and digitalization of time use data production, I wanted to ask you, Patricia, I mean, you gave us the full overview, comprehensive overview of the tool, but as a group, we have been promoting this light solution to collect time use data. But what if a country is still interested in applying or conducting a standalone, full, traditional time use survey? How would this tool be useful? How could they apply or adopt this tool? If you can say just a few words.
Sure, Francesca. The aim behind this is making sure that all countries will at least have those 24 different activities within their own survey. So if they are already collecting time use data, I'm almost 100% positive they already have this. So it is just the minimum required. So countries can just continue running their own time use surveys, just making sure that all the minimum list is being covered by their survey, and that the background information required is also there. But if a country has already done so, there's a huge probability that they already have all of this. So this is just an assurance that at the end, when we'll aggregate data, it will all be at the same level. So this is the biggest aim for the minimum harmonized instrument.
Thank you. So we are really promoting like a minimum denominator across all time use data collections. And that's the minimum that we are requiring for countries to follow. For all of you who are interested in the details, in the juicy details, of course, there is the full report is available online. Please go to actually, I think my colleague just added the link on the chat. You can see the 3 reports that are going to be discussed this morning. The minimum harmonized instrument is also available as a background document together with the other 2 on digitalization and quality considerations. They are background documents in the portal for the 53rd Statistical Commission. So you can access them from the chat, or you can go straight to the Statistical Commission website. Will, we are ready to move into your presentation. Will King is our colleague from ONS, from the Office for National Statistics in the UK. He's an operational researcher, and we have been working with him and his team for many years. Thank you, Will. You have the floor.
Hi. So this is my presentation on the modernization of the production of time use statistics. So as Francesca was just saying, I'm Will King. I work in the Skills, Time Use and Economic Wellbeing team for the Office for National Statistics in the UK. If you go on to the next slide, please. So the report and its purpose. So members of the Modernisation subgroup of the expert group wrote the report titled Modernisation of the Production of Time Use Statistics. It is a guide to improving the collection of time use across developing and non-developing countries. It describes considerations to help assess if a modernisation approach is feasible. For context, national statistic offices are facing challenges in conducting time use surveys and social surveys in general due to decreasing response rates, increasing costs, and delays in dissemination. Modernisation is seen to some extent as a remedy to this. It's important to think of modernisation as a journey from the current survey that is currently being implemented to the survey that is most appropriate from the country. On to the next slide, please. So why modernise? First of all, time use surveys are resource-intensive processes. Due to the in-depth nature of the data, a large amount of time and resource is required to set up and collect the survey. Secondly, there is heavy respondent burden. We require respondents to fill out detailed information about themselves. This is time-consuming and some could see it as intrusive. Thirdly, there is a need to produce and disseminate time use statistics in a timely manner. As the demand for measures time use surveys collect, such as unpaid work, increases, there is increasing pressure to disseminate these results quicker. And finally, modes of collection have various issues associated, as I will go into on the next slide. So traditionally, respondents were interviewed on their time use over the telephone or asked to register their time use in a paper diary. Researchers then coded these responses into a data set. We refer from here on in as these as our more traditional methods. These have obvious downsides. So on the paper side, it's resource intensive to code up. On the telephone side, people might provide more socially desirable responses as a result of interacting with another person. There could be long interviews associated, as time use surveys take a long time to collect. And there could also be recall issues from the respondents. It's important to note that traditional methods do still have their uses. For example, less economically developed countries have less access to technology. But since these traditional methods, some of organisations have advanced their surveys, making use of the various technology at their disposal. So now we'll focus on these modernised methods. First of all, looking at online collection. So online collection involves respondents self-reporting their time use data in an online diary tool. The tool has separate areas for filling in demographic and time use information. So if we look at mobile apps as well, these are very similar to online diary platforms. They have the added benefit that they can be filled in offline and will upload information when people become online again, but have the drawback of requiring approval from an app store. In general, modernised methods have various benefits. So they have higher response rates. They have higher quality data. This could be through greater detail within the data or fewer wrong diary days. They're easily editable. You can incorporate automated checks, and you can really easily send reminders to fill in the survey, things like these. Finally, we have mixed modes. Offering respondents a variety of options isn't likely to improve response rates and quality of the data. So when we talk about modernisation, we mostly mean traversing from our traditional methods to our more modernised methods. But what does modernisation look like for more traditional methods? The recording of data during interviews would be vastly improved with the use of portable electronic devices such as laptops and smartphones and tablets. Interviewers can follow on-screen prompts to obtain the time use data from the respondents. Paper diaries could be improved with automated data entry technologies. These could enable character or checkbox recognition, which could improve the processing time of the surveys. Now let us look at the considerations when thinking about modernisation. So if you go on to the next slide, please. So first of all, we have cost considerations. These are across two dimensions, startup and ongoing. Startup costs tend to be higher for modernized approaches, as starting up a modernized survey involves developing a survey collection tool, upskilling survey teams, testing the platform, user testing, and accessibility testing. This startup cost, however, could be lowered with repurposing an existing online to fit a country's needs. Ongoing costs, however, are lower with modernized tools. It is simpler to make changes in the tool in response to testing. It's cheaper to engage with respondents, and there is a cost saving from processing and storing the data in a more automated way. Next, we consider quality. Oh, sorry. On the quality side, so if we consider the quality of individual responses, generally modernized tools allow flexibility for individuals to fill in their data. So people can fill in their data live, and obviously that will have less recall issues associated, sorry. And then if we include mixed mode into the picture as well, we can increase the quality of the sample, decreasing representability issues from individuals unable to use certain technologies. On the security side, there are more security considerations associated with modernized approaches. This is as a result of collecting and storing data in an online platform. Next, if we consider survey content, so with a traditional method, core time use aspects such as main activities, location, and co-presence are easily captured. However, additional parts of the survey, such as context questions, are more easily asked in a modernized approach. So, for example, if we had a travel activity and we wanted to know what was their mode of travel or what their reason of travel was, this would be easier to ask in pop-up questions associated with a modernized approach. Finally, if we look at registration method of activities, there are two main methods. We ask people free text responses, or we ask them what they were doing in free text categorization, or we give them a predefined list of activities, both of which are less burdensome in a modernized approach. If we could go on to the next slide. There are also some potential technologies to be used in future collections. So, for example, geolocation data. We could be using GPS data to inform location variable, or it could even be used to infer certain activities. We could also further use automating technologies. So, for example, we could use AI to categorize free text-based activities. Additionally, we could use video conferencing to retain some of the more personal human touch from interviews. And finally, we could use social media to encourage different user demographics to fill out time use surveys. So, for example, the younger generation. Go on to the next slide. In summary, there are many different considerations when choosing to modernize a time use survey. We hope our report will help organizations decide the best way forward for them. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Will. I think you gave us again a very nice overview of the elements that countries should consider when engaging or starting their modernization process. And what I really retain is that we are talking about a journey, right? People are in different positions. Countries are modernizing their processes and systems in the national statistical systems, regardless of time use surveys. So what we are saying here is that they should just build on what they are already doing in other data collection activities, being population housing censuses or being other household surveys, and make sure that also their time use surveys or time use data collection can benefit from those steps towards modernizations of national statistical systems. So think of it as a journey. For some of you, could be really to upgrade and adopt a mixed mode approach where you have the Kawi and CATIs on the phone or on the web. You are collecting this important information. Or it could be that you are moving from paper diaries to CAPI, so you still have interviewers. You still need the interviewer to go on with the survey, but instead of having paper forms, you are using electronic tablets. So we are here also to assist you. Of course, I would love to see some interaction and questions and comments on the chat. Please do not be shy. This is your opportunity to ask questions to the three key authors of the reports that will be discussed in a week or so at the Statistical Commission. So do not miss that opportunity. I hope many of you have been reading those documents. They are quite technical. So by all means, feel free to jump in and ask questions or provide feedback to the reports. In the meantime, let's go and talk about quality considerations with Lisa. Of course, we are promoting this light instrument called the Minimum Harmonized Instrument. But we are not promoting to lose the overall picture of promoting high level quality data, right? So we are not promoting to take any short of the corners we are still here to promote the best relevant data possible. So Lisa, up to you. Thanks so much for being with us. Lisa Scanlon is the director of the Household Surveys branch at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and it's really very, very late for her. So big thanks to you, Lisa. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Francesca, and hello, everybody. I don't have slides, so you're just going to have to look at my smiling face. It's a bit confronting just looking at it myself, but there we are. That's right. I'm a director of the Household Surveys branch at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and I have responsibility for our time use survey, which the Australian Bureau of Statistics reinstated after an absence of for well over 15 years. We've just finished in the field, and certainly a lot of the quality aspects that I can talk about today resonate very much with what we saw in our survey. So the approach we took in preparing the quality chapter was to commence with the underlying assumption that survey agencies undertaking time use surveys already apply the same quality parameters that they apply to all their surveys, and there are already a number of well-developed survey quality frameworks, and of course we did not want to repeat those in our chapter. So where we focused our attention was on the unique features of a time use survey and the quality aspects specifically relevant to those. The structure of the chapter is to walk through, if you like, the different components in designing and running a time use survey. So we looked at the survey design and the decisions that need to be made about how we are going to run the survey. We discussed the background questionnaire. We then spend quite a bit of the chapter looking at the diary itself, whether it's a self-completion diary, an electronic diary, an interviewer diary, a light diary, full diary, paper, electronic, etc. We then talk a little bit about the processing and coding and what quality means for that. And then we also talk about the dissemination aspects as well. So I might pick up on the two pieces of work that my colleagues Patricia and Will spoke about firstly, and then what I plan on doing is just picking up some examples of what you'll find in the chapter to talk through what the quality considerations are for someone who's running and designing or anticipating running a time use survey. So when we think about the minimum harmonised instrument, so from a quality perspective, and if you're thinking of running a time use survey, the benefit of using this instrument as it is, or as the basis of a more detailed time use data collection, is that it has been designed by expert people, expert time use survey people, to specifically collect the necessary information to support the production of time use data. So from a quality perspective, the content has been developed by experts, including topic experts such as the ILO. So anyone using the instrument can be assured it is a high quality instrument and that it will deliver high quality data outcomes. The other benefit of using it is it will enable a more robust cross-country comparisons and analysis. It also means that having this instrument available is very attractive or useful for countries that might not have the time or the resources to undertake the work required to develop and test an instrument. So, you know, it's available, it's there to be used, we know it's robust, we know it collects what we need. So that will give the users of that instrument a good, high quality instrument. If I turn my attention now to pick up on the modernisation that Will touched on, as an NSO, you know, we are talking about a journey for modernisation, and quality should always be at the forefront of any decision or changes we want to make. And all NSOs are actively moving to web-based surveys, and this has been particularly fast-tracked in the last 2 years as COVID has disrupted our ability to continue with face-to-face interviewing. Generally, as Will mentioned, the journey has been incremental, and countries are at different stages along this continuum, and no doubt we will continue to modernise. So I wanted to talk through one example, if you like, of moving from face-to-face interviewing to telephone interviewing, and what are some of the quality considerations we need to think about that. And these are probably not just typical for time use survey, but certainly very relevant for time use survey. So when we think about moving from face-to-face, where we send interviewers out knocking on doors, to telephone, we need to think about the level of telephone ownership and coverage in the community. You know, are there distinct community groups or population groups that don't have telephones and therefore are likely to be excluded if we working off telephone lists? How comprehensive and up to date is that list? There's some of the things we need to think about. If we think about in the case of landlines, we potentially have that assumption that every household has a landline. If we think about mobile phones, the distribution is quite different, where there are multiple mobile phones in the household. Therefore, if we have bigger households and we're collecting mobile phone numbers, those bigger households have more chance of being selected than others. So that introduces a bias. So little nuances and little changes like that are all quality aspects that we need to think about when we're designing our survey. So if we move further along the continuum and move to web-based interview surveys, which is where we are going because they are more efficient, they are cheaper. We know that's how people like to interact with government agencies. We need to think about other aspects such as computer literacy, accessibility in their community. Are there population groups that are not represented? There is now no interviewer interaction. So the web form must be able to stand on its own. So the things that interviewers might have been able to explain or prompt for have to be contained within the web instrument to enable that to happen. And as I mentioned in my introduction, a lot of these things are not unique to time use survey. but what I guess, and all surveys will experience these challenges and as they move forward. But with time use, there are some extra challenges because of the existence of the diary, and it's this uniqueness that introduces that extra quality parameter for time use. And much of the work we obviously included focuses on the diary. So traditionally, time use diary information was collected on a paper diary, and whether that was a self-completion diary or one that was left with the respondent to complete, or an interviewer completing the diary. And as we move along the modernisation journey from the interviewer and paper-based diary to telephone-based and web survey, the way the respondent interacts with the diary is different. And in many instances, countries are using multi-mode because of that, the need and the requirement to be able to reach all participants. And what's really important is that we make in that multi-mode environment that all the modes are compatible, so that when we bring the data together, it's of the same quality and the same level of completeness. So, for example, if we consider moving from a traditional paper diary to an electronic diary, NSOs need to make sure we adjust the layout, design, etc., so that the interaction is the same. So an electronic diary, if we think about it on an iPhone, is designed to be completed on the go, and the optimal data outcome will be people being able to complete their activities on the go. In a multi-mode environment where we have perhaps some people completing a paper diary and others on an electronic diary, the way they are going to interact is very different. And likewise with an electronic diary, sometimes what we might need to do is compromise on the amount of information we're collecting compared to the paper grid-based diary, because of the way people interact with an electronic device. And certainly I can say that in the case of the Australian Time Use Survey, where we did have an electronic and a paper diary, we did find that we needed to balance the amount of information we were collecting in the electronic diary because of the way people interact with an electronic diary. So these are the focus on quality becomes very important as we are on this journey that we spoke about, and we always need to think about making the collection of data as easy as possible for respondents so that we can get high quality data. If we make things too difficult, then we risk losing our. Some other things we need to think about in the context of quality for the time use survey is when we think about the processing, for example. What are the limits we are going to place on our diary? Do we have a minimum time that we are going to use as a cutoff? So if people, for example, have completed less than 12 hours, are we going to reject those diaries because we feel there's not enough information? Or alternatively, it might be the number of activities that we look at. Well, we're looking at a minimum of a certain number of activities, or combinations. If we set that bar too low, then we might get some poor quality data coming through. If we set that bar too high, we may not get enough diaries passing that test. So there are some of the quality parameters we need to put in place. If we are using paper diaries, another consideration is the data entry that happens with a paper diary. So we need to make sure the people that are doing the data entry are well trained, that they understand and can interpret handwriting. People write whatever verbatim, and we need to be able to understand what they mean when they're writing that. Will we be imputing information? For example, if sleep is missing, do we impute that? If the location has changed and no travel has been recorded, do we impute that? And if we do impute it, how much do we impute it for? So these are all quality things that that as survey managers we need to think about within the context of our diaries. Obviously, we need to make sure interviewers are well trained so that we can get quality outcomes, and similarly, our data processing provides us with the quality assurances that we need. Just a couple of other things. We need to make sure our sample is geographically distributed across our population, because we know that the way people use their time and activities people undertake vary across populations. Likewise, we also need to make sure the number of days are represented appropriately across the week, as well as seasons over the years. So please take the time to read the quality chapter. There's a lot of information in there, and I've only really scratched the surface here, but I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. Unfortunately, actually, we are running a little bit late as usual, because as we start talking about our work, we get all passionate and it's difficult to stop. But a couple of things. First of all, thanks so much for reminding us the critical quality considerations that we always need to keep in mind in all type of household surveys, but in particular when we talk about time use surveys, because they are quite complex operations. You are all invited to read and study the report on quality for time use data production that is available at the Statistical Commission portal. There are also quite interesting exchanges on the chat, and I would invite the three key speakers, Patricia, Will, Lisa, and many others, colleagues, experts of time use surveys, to take a look at the chat and feel free to respond directly to questions and comments that are provided there. We will save the chat, we will study the chat, and if you have also questions for us, the UN Statistics Division, we will make sure that we get back to you. So apologies for that, but we don't have much time. Quickly, I want to tell you that this group is called the UN Expert Group on Innovative and Effective ways to produce time use data. You heard from Patricia, who is the chair. You heard from Lisa and from Will, who are the experts who contributed to those two reports. There are many other experts that I saw some of them are also with us. I'm not going to acknowledge all of them, but just quickly, we worked with ILO, with ECLAC Gender Division. We have Statistics South Africa. We have Statistics Finland. We have ISTAT, the statistical office from Italy, INEGI, the statistical office from Mexico. We have Statistics New Zealand. You saw the UK. We have ABS, Australia Bureau of Statistics with Lisa. We have the Bureau of Labor Statistics from the US. We have UN Women. We have UNICEF. We have Eurostat, a few colleagues from Eurostat. Nice to have you with us. We have the Statistical Office of Morocco. And then we have experts from University of Brussels. We have Inyas, who is also the president of IATUR, and we have Merge Guerrero, whom many of you already know. This group also worked hardly during COVID to come up with a rapid instrument to collect time use data from a set of 40 stylized questions to get a sense of time use during crises, including the COVID pandemic. If you are interested in the instrument, you can scan the little logo that is in front of you. There is also a nice infographic on the side. You can scan it, and there is a video that gives you all the juicy details. Please don't watch the video now, because now we are going to move into another important topic. We are going to talk about producing statistics on femicide. But please save it for later and enjoy the video. Enrico, without further ado, you have the floor. Tell us everything we need to know to be prepared for the discussion in a week or so at the Statistical Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. Thanks, for inviting us here. And I'm here giving a short overview of what we have done, what we are proposing, also on behalf of the other organizations that you see here on the slide. So UNC and UN Women with also the 2 centers of excellence worked a lot during the last few years to develop this new framework, this new, if you want, approach to measure femicide. Next slide, please. Thank you. Why did we start this work? Yeah, we as at the UN, we always have to at the start say what is the mandate, where this, who told us to do this work. That's always very important. But this is we had a statistical commission decision on this. We also should remind, a number of also resolutions by the General Assembly, for example, on this issue of femicide. But I think if you will look around in all our countries, wherever we live, if we just read a newspaper any day, I believe this the urgency of addressing this issue of gender-based killings of women and girls, it comes, I believe, from there very clearly, because we know this is we can say, I don't know if it's the most the hardest form of violence against women, but certainly is one of the ultimate forms of violence against women. So it's really important that we, as a statistical community, are able to provide some numbers, some good numbers, some comparable disaggregated numbers on this on a continuous and sustainable manner. Next slide, thank you. So just a few milestones on the development process, just to draw your attention on the fact that there were a number of important steps and decisions in doing this, because on femicide, I will adopt the term femicide because to avoid repeating every time the long term. But there are many views, many concepts, many perspectives really on this type of killing. So it was quite challenging to find a common ground from different perspectives. So it was important in this process to identify some common, some, we can say, some common background for so to have the femicide definition for statistical purposes closely linked to the international crime classification of crime for statistical purposes, to have agree on the fact that the definition of femicide for statistical purposes is something different from what can be used by different countries in their respective legal systems. And also it's important that, the other step to come to an agreement that at the end, what is really the challenge in developing a common definition of a femicide, that to make this component, this gender motivation of the killing of a woman in a way measurable, so that it can be the determination of whether a certain killing should be considered a femicide or not is based on some objective characteristics. So this again, to get to this kind of overall agreement was already a major achievement. It took many months of discussions. Then in April last year, there was, based on this document that was developed by the agency that attended this first meeting in June 2019, and then I don't dare to make the list of the agencies, because for sure I would forget some of them, but there were really many agencies attending this meeting. On the basis of that one, a global consultation was launched last year to assess, the validity, the relevance, feasibility of a number of variables. We identified 32 variables. That's in a way can be considered as different ways relevant to operationalize this concept of gender-motivated killings. On the basis of that consultation, then we developed the framework that I'm presenting now. So next, thank you. So if you see here, I mean, the kind of process I just described. So in a way, from the big circle, you see all the, in a way, the killings. We can represent all the killings of women and girls. Then the inner circle represent the intentional homicides of women and girls, because not all the killings are considered as intentional homicides. Because, for example, the killings of people during conflicts are not considered as intentional homicide. So, and then within the set of homicides targeting women and girls, there are specifically the ones we are interested in is the gender-related killings of women and girls. So this is what we represent here is what what is considered as a gender-based killings. But again, as I said earlier, the challenge is to understand what means this gender motivation. Next, please. Gender motivation, is important to say, is not related to the subjective intent of the offender, of the person who is killing the woman or the girl, but is related to the we can say the root causes that characterize the context where the killings takes place. So it can be due to stereotyped gender roles. It can be due to discrimination, unequal power relations, inequality. So it's the broad approach here is to understand all the situations where one of these criteria is at stake, and that we can consider as at the basis, as the driving force behind the killing of a woman or a girl. Next slide. So as you can understand, it's the challenge when from this concept is to identify some characteristics that we in the daily life, people working in, for example, in the police or in the public sector, public health sector, can detect so that we can understand that whether a certain homicide is gender motivated or not. First important starting point is that we know that in the domestic sphere, and you can see this very clearly, which still represent a minority of the entire number of homicides. Still, what we can see very clearly is that the large majority of victims, victims of homicides by either intimate partner or another family member, so the victims are females. This is the percentage overall. If the percentage 58%, you can see. If we consider only intimate partners, the percentage is much, much higher. While in the domestic, if we go outside the domestic sphere, the percentage of male is much higher. So this is the first building block that we identified. Next slide, please. This is the first data block that we identify as representative, as identifying, composing the one part of gender-based killings. So killings of women and girls by either intimate partners or other family members. Then, based on again a number of also based on the consultation, based on also of course on research literature, we identified a number of criteria, and you can see them here, like, for example, whether there was a previous record of harassment or violence, whether there was an excessive use of force in the killing, and so on. There are a number of them, and these are additional variables that can be used to identify femicides. So at least one of them should, if it happens that a killing of a woman is related to at least one of these modus operandi, we can also count that as a femicide. So, and next slide, please. So in this way, we identified a number, we call them big data blocks, where that can be used to count the total number of femicides. Besides that, we also, in the framework, there is also a comprehensive list of variables that we say for more analytical purposes that are very important to understand, to understand the context, to understand the risk factors, or on the other hand, the protective factors in relation to femicide. So, and you can see them here, some characteristics related to the victim, some to the perpetrator, some to the event itself. So, for example, it's very important to know, also from a policy perspective, if a femicide took place even when there was, for example, a restraining order by law enforcement against the perpetrator. So you see, from all this information, the first set information can give us gradually a good count of femicides. The second set of information can give us information on why the femicide took place, what was behind that. We think we can give a much better we can have a much better understanding of this form of violence against crime, so that women, so that we can, of course, give our contribution to stop this form of violence. Next slide, which I think is the last one. Yes. What is this is the very briefly, of course, the content of the framework. In a few weeks, we will have a discussion at the Statistical Commission. We hope that this framework will be adopted, will be accepted. And then we will be happy to, of course, to assist countries in implementing this framework, which we know will be a step-by-step implementation path. There will be, because we know that not all data, not all variables will be available. I mean, will be usable from the start. But for example, the killings based on gender, on intimate partners or family members maybe are easier than the others. We know that these data should be produced by different stakeholders, many, whether it's the police, but also, the different levels of the criminal justice system. So police, prosecution, the courts. So also because it's important to assess not only what happens, but also what is the state response to this. And not only, of course, the criminal justice, but also for example, public health institutions can work on this data, and why not also academia or NGOs. Besides accompanying countries, we hope we can also strengthen, improve the data collection, international data collection, and we will also be happy to continue to engage in capacity building and advocacy activities for this framework to be implemented. The situation now, we know that the measurement of violence against women is a very complex undertaking. There are, we know that there are many, surveys that are, of course, trying to capture the several forms of violence against women. The possibility to capture this specific form of violence against women, femicide, is probably in a way more can be implemented in several countries with a more continuous basis, because it can be part of the administrative data production. This is certainly not intended to replace, other forms of measurement of violence against women, but we think it's an important component of the overall undertaking of this, official statistics to measure violence against women. I will stop here. Thanks a lot for your attention. If there is any question, it would be, of course.
Yeah, I just saw one for you, so I'm gonna point that to you. Just quickly, that's a great introduction to these very difficult concepts, of course. Thanks for unpacking also the different elements of the conceptual framework to measure femicide from a statistical perspective. I was just curious also in terms of the gradual implementation, if you have already identified selected countries, partner countries that will be piloting the conceptual framework with you. But before, think about it, and I'm going to read the questions that we got on the chat. I mean, I see that the participants are also still engaging on the time use part. That's fantastic. Could you kindly explain, Enrico, how this work, the work that you just presented, relates to the classification on femicide published by the European Institute for Gender Equality? So what's the connection with the European work? And yes, please, you have the floor.
That's a tricky question. I should know that classification first to answer to this one, to this question. I think there is a thanks for the question. I think there is a lot in common. Frankly, I should first review that more carefully. I think that the one challenge that we faced here, and I mean, we try to make another step. Yeah. This one to operationalize in a clear way this gender motivation characteristics of homicide. So, and this is we put together these two main, if you want, two main data blocks. One is based on the victim perpetrator relationship, and one is based more on the modus operandi. So how this killing took place. So this probably is a we believe, yeah, a little step forward to make it more, relevant to what we are intending to measure here. I don't know if there is other. I'm looking also at the chat if there is a...
Yes, there is one from our colleague Adrian from INEGI. Can you tell us a little bit more about how national statistical offices in countries can start to implement the conceptual framework? If you can also highlight what countries can expect in terms of time, processes, and expected results.
Okay, thank you, Adrian, for the question. Now, we think that nowadays there are more or less around 80 countries in the world that are able to produce the data on killings of women, or also of men, by relationship, victim-perpetrator relationship. We know this is not the only component, but based on numbers is still the bigger ones, the bigger one. This we would say is the starting point. So to be able to collect from law enforcement, from the police, this type of information. We know that the police doesn't always have this type of information, but because we know that in many cases, unfortunately, the police doesn't detect the offender of a homicide. But still, this is a very important piece. The starting, we say, the first pillar, and not only from the police, but also from the other agencies, because it's also important to know what is the state response. I would say these are the so how many trials we have on for gender-based killing, for killings from intimate partners, for example, or how many convictions. These are, we would say, the first steps to implement this framework. Then the other ones based more on the modus operandi maybe are more demanding, maybe require a bit more time, but this I would suggest as a starting point.
Thank you so much, Enrico. I think that for all of you who are with us, interested in the details of the conceptual framework, please take a look at the portal of the 53rd Statistical Commission, because there is a dedicated report prepared by Enrico and his team, prepared by UNODC, And I invite you, of course, to read everything there. We may also have a background document presenting additional details for the conceptual framework for producing statistics on femicides that is available for your review. There will be a discussion at the Statistical Commission also, I believe is going to be your agenda item on Tuesday, the 1st of March. So we look forward to that discussion with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Enrico. Thank you so much for being with us. We are ready to move into the third part. Please stay with us. I'm so very happy to give the floor to my colleagues, Lingyan, who is a statistical assistant at UNSD, and Luis Gerardo Gonzalez Morales, who is a statistician also at UNSD. They will give us a demo on the new recently developed portal that hosts the minimum set of gender indicators. You may remember that this set is a very important set. It has been approved, adopted by the Statistical Commission in 2013 as a guide for national production and international compilation of this basic set of gender data. It is completely harmonized with SDGs. The SDGs came after because we have the set of SDGs indicators as of 2016, more or less, approved by the Commission in 2017. So this is a very important set to measure gender issues in countries and at the global level. We call it the thematic gender indicator set. So Lingyan, I believe you are the first one to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca, and hello everyone. My name is Lingyan. I'm from the Social and Gender Statistics section of UNSD. And today, me and my colleague Luis will give you a quick preview of the new minimum set of gender indicators portal. So let me share my screen. At the moment, we have 4 main pages. On the home page, there is a brief introduction to what the minimum set of gender indicators is. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the minimum set, it's a set of 51 quantitative indicators and 11 qualitative indicators measuring information related to gender equality and women's empowerment. These 62 indicators are organized into 5 thematic areas: economic, empowerment, education, health, public life, decision-making, and human rights of women and girl children. On this page, user has the option to get to see the list of indicators and corresponding data series in PDF format by clicking on the link here. We also provided a small data coverage at a glance dashboard for those of you interested in an overview of the data availability. So next, I will move on to the second page, the data page. On the data page, users can find an expandable list of indicators and the data series listed under corresponding areas, as you can see here. Like I said, they're expandable, so if I click on the title of an individual indicator, users will find buttons that enable them to access data in such as table or map format. I'll give you a quick example. Here is the data for one indicator in table format, in the traditional table format. Different columns represents different variables such as serious name, geographic area, we have reference area, different disaggregations like age, sex, types of urbanization, as well as the actual data value, users have option to download the data table into CSV files. Also, the same data is plotted on the maps using XY coordinates. If I click on the Canada here, a pop-up window will show and list all the 36 data points for Canada. So let me go back to the data table, data page. So again, in addition to users can access the data for each individual indicators and the data series in table or map formats, there's also the option view metadata if you're interested in more methodological information. We also created 6 individual pages for the 5 thematic areas. In addition to topic in focus, which at the moment is on time use statistics. On these 6 individual pages, you can find more in-depth information. I'll use time use as an example. I'll use time use page, the page for time use statistics. So time use statistics measures time spent on unpaid work, domestic and care work, disaggregated by sex, age, and location. Women in all regions of the world continue to bear more responsibilities at home and perform most unpaid work. As you can see here in the dashboard right below, men spend 1.9 hours per day on average on unpaid work, while women spend 4.2 hours per day on unpaid work. Also, users can further drill down by filtering through different SDG regions, countries, different years, age groups, as well as whether it's rural or versus urban areas. So this is an example of the in-depth information we also included in the portal. We hope that by seeing our analysis and the visualizations, users will be inspired or interested in creating their own insights and stories. Last but not least, you can also find information on other areas of our work under About Us page. So I will stop here and hand over to my colleague, Luis, to tell you a little bit more about our plans for the future work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lingyan, and hello, everybody. I would like to thank Francesca's team, particularly Lingyan, for the opportunity to be part of this journey in which they have been engaging in making integrating the statistical data from the minimum set of gender indicators in a geospatially enabled environment. So my name is Luis Gonzalez. I'm heading the web development and data visualization section in the statistics division. And I'm very happy to see this collaboration with the demographic and social statistics branch coming to fruition here. So what you see is just the beginning of what we hope will be continuous development of this data dissemination, analytics, and visualization platform. And our plans are to continue improving This data hub that Lingjian has presented by further integrating the statistical and geospatial data that is available on gender, not only within the division, but also across the global statistical system. So we are continuously working on enhancing the analytic capabilities of this site through the new ways of disseminating and visualizing and communicating data using WebGIS tools, as you can see. So there is a very important component on GIS, maps, map visualizations, and also making the data available for specialized users that want to take this data as layers that then can be combined with other sources by the users themselves. So what we would like to continue doing is to promote across the division collaboration, building a federated architecture that allows to integrate different global initiatives like this one on gender with other initiatives like the Federated Information System for the SDGs, the modernization of the UN data platform. There has been a lot of work behind the scenes by Francesca's team in making this data interoperable. So the data is now in a way that can be more easily integrated with other data sets, adopting standards that enable SDMX exchange of data in the near future. And we hope to continue working with this, with the whole gender statistics community. And to do that, also we have plans to make this work in terms of the tools that we are using, the script things, the data flows open, so that we can engage with each other, build community, and learn together. Yeah. So just would like to thank again for the tremendous work that the substantive team in the area of gender statistics have been doing, and I hope to support that going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to you, Luis. You have been behind us and really helping us in making the links and improving the integration of the many databases that we are maintaining